evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our review, discussion, reaction, speculation of, well, there won't be speculating. I know what's happening. Of The Last of Us. This is for episode 1. This is When You're Lost in the Darkness, which fireflies kept spraying all over the walls.
Yep.
Okay. Some precursors before we really get into this. We just watched the episode. We are going to work through our thoughts and feelings and everything right now on camera. So we're instantly reacting to what we just saw. We are not watching along. If you are here to watch us watch along, thank you for the click. I'm sorry, that's not what we do around here. We rather talk about what the deeper meaning of the show and the game itself is going to be than to sit here and do funny faces while Joel beats up people. 2, I have played the game. It's probably my favorite game. It has been, however, a hot minute since I've done it. It's probably been, well, it was before the pandemic when I played it.
Didn't you do 2?
I did some of 2. I got about halfway through Last of Us 2. And so I understand what, I know the big parts. I don't remember the little details and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about a lot of the big details and big emotional points and stuff like that. And if I remember a detail, I'm going to bring the detail up. I have not rewatched the walkthrough of the story mode yet. I might do that this week. So I don't want her to watch it because I want her to be fresh eyes going into this.
Yes, I have not played the game.
She has not played the game. I have not told her what happens in the game. I have not told her anything that happens other than it's brutal at times, and I had hard time sleeping when I was playing the game.
Right, and he was angry at the end?
Yeah. I'm much more angry about the second one. That's a different conversation. Okay, so with all of those precursors being laid out in front of us, let's talk about our initial feelings and reactions to what we just saw. I'll let you go first.
Oh, I just stabbed myself with my mic.
All right.
I liked it. Pedro Pascal, Jesus.
Right.
When his... Okay, first of all, spoilers.
That was the other thing I didn't tell you. We're going to talk about the episode. So we're going to talk about spoilers and stuff as we go along.
Right. So when his daughter dies, just you could feel it. It was just ripping your heart out. I mean, we have a soft spot in our hearts for Bella Ramsey because of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But it's a little different than I was expecting, I guess, just based on my zombie experience, right? And I'm sure a lot of people, it's the same thing. If you haven't played the game and you're of a certain age, your big zombie experience is going to be Walking Dead,
right?
Which really started, immediately as the zombie outbreak was happening and kind of worked through, the deterioration of society and of the people and that were still around. So it was a little jarring to go from...
You ever watched a movie and thought, this is just visually amazing, and I just love the way it looks, and the colors are amazing? Well, our friends over at Movie Palette have come up with these great pieces of art that you could put up on your wall to show your love of movies without really necessarily being overly dramatic about it. Think of a movie barcode kind of thing, where you can look at the colors and know what the movie is, but it's very, very subtle. If you know us, we are into Tron Legacy. The music and the lights and the color itself is just amazing. Just to give you an idea of what they have. Go to moviepalette.com, find your own personal favorite movie, your movie color palette, and have it hang on your wall. At checkout, put in Pop Culture 15 to get 15% off. Thank you, Movie Palette, for sponsoring this video. Link is in the description down below. And don't forget, use Pop Culture 15 at checkout to get 15% off your order.
here's the outbreak to 20 years later with
Yeah.
no real explanation as to even what happened.
Yeah.
Um, I'm, I have faith that they will get there in due time. Um, but yeah, overall, I I liked it. I'm ready for the next one. I'm ready to see more.
So, having it said everything that I said before about my favorite game, I was super excited about when they announced this. When they said that it's going to happen and that Dunkerman is going to be directly involved, who wrote the game, who is the developer in the game. He's directly involved in this. He's helping. He's helping be a showrunner. He's helping write it. Had high hopes for it, and this really set the bar really high for me for the rest of the series. A critique I heard um, earlier in the week was it's a great opening and then it slows in the middle of the episode, um, which is a fair critique because it has to slow down to do world building. Because you do
Right,
that 20-year gap,
right,
you do the outbreak and the franticness that is the outbreak, and then you go into the 20-year gap. They have to go
right.
back and kind of make you take a breath, and they even tell Joel. Tess even tells Joel you need to take a breath like multiple times,
Yeah,
and that's more for the us as the audience too.
yeah, and yeah. I mean, that's kind of some of what I was saying, right? You go from everything is quickly falling apart to now we're in the lived in, it's been 20 years for these people, that the plane crashing in the middle of whatever small town USA is, that's a far distant memory, right? Now
Right.
we're living, and even the final, was it the final shot or in the credits or whatever, where they kind of show Boston, the quarantine zone that they're
Yes.
all living
Yes.
in, and the buildings obviously look like they haven't been, taken care of like they would normally. But then just the skyscrapers kind of leaning against each other, and me, I'm like, I want to know that story. I want
Right.
to
Right.
know how that
Right.
happened. One of our favorite shows, and I don't remember what the name of it was. Was it on History Channel
I,
where they did
yeah.
After Humans or
I
something?
think it was called After Humans.
And
Yeah.
just the, a
Earth
week,
taking back everything.
yeah, a
Yeah.
week after humans are gone, and then a month, and then a year, and I just find that
They
fascinating.
will. They will deal with some of that as we go along.
Yep,
As we
I'm
kind of
I have faith.
as we kind of progress, there's going to be they showed it in the trailer for what you're going to see in the season. So it was there, but you're going to see how some communities have fallen in disrepair, and there's some communities that are martial law, which is Fedra, which
Right,
is why the Fireflies are fighting against them because they're trying to get central government back, and Fedra is like local warlords kind of working with each other. But then there's other things, other establishments, other groups as they travel
right,
that are going to be brought to us and shown to us, and how each person uh, is either affected by the outbreak or affected by those who have taken power during the outbreak,
right,
and what that all means and how that is. Much of the story of why I loved it is not necessarily about the zombie stuff. The zombie stuff is very secondary, but it's much more about the human reaction to utter dissolution dissolution of the construct that is society,
right, right,
and
right.
how politics are doesn't matter, how like I
But then
love,
it all just comes back,
and then it
right?
all comes back. I just love the mundanity they showed. They started off uh with Sarah going to class,
Yeah,
and just the cute the nice old neighbors. Hey, come over and say hi to us later.
yeah.
Like it just that
And
that
she's like,
yeah, just
I
like
have to.
how it's so doesn't matter to her. And now, if she hadn't made it, like you'd want to have that. You'd want to have that moment of
Right. Well, and
of mundanity.
it's a nice contrast too, right? It shows you like uh, the very mundane, beginning of the day, making coffee, having pancakes, blah blah blah, arguing over, whatever. And it's his birthday and she gets him something and all that. But very, just all of us can relate, kind of your just basic morning, getting ready for work, getting ready for school, to 20 years later, and where
Oh,
Joel's apartment, and
yeah,
just the city itself. And yeah.
and just how dilapidated it is. It's just kind of being held together with baling wire and duct tape
Right,
and
but for
stuff.
them, it's just like
That's
this
their
is yeah,
mundanity
this is
now and
where
stuff
it
like
is.
that. Let's talk about the opening 25 minutes, because that is essentially as close as you can get shot to the game. The shot in the truck is you in the truck. You're riding along as you're going through the town when the plane crashes and the gas station blows up, and it's pretty on nose. Everybody filing out of the movie theater who've been
Yeah,
infected. Like
yeah,
it's just it's that it's that intensity that you kind of go through.
yeah,
They add a little bit more to kind of build up Sarah, so you feel emotionally connected to her when she gets shot by the military guy.
right,
But it's much more important for Joel's story arc that we spent time with Sarah and make her the protagonist, the one we care about, the one who actually does go over and hang out with the nice old lady next door, the one who does make cookies even if they're raisin. Who puts raisins in cookies? And that she cares for her dad and she did stuff for him for his birthday, and so having that all happen and setting her up and then killing her, and not killing her nicely, like killing her bloodily, unneededly, and having Joel's reaction to be that is where Joel is 20 years later. He still
right,
hasn't gotten over that, and now at the end of this episode, we get his brutality when he goes after the military guy who threatens to shoot Ellie.
right. Because
Uh,
he's like, this isn't happening again.
and this isn't happening again. And even
Yeah,
at this point, he's not defending his new daughter because she's just a package to him.
yeah,
A means to the end, so a means to an end, so he can get a truck and go to Wyoming to see where Tommy is.
right,
And so having that time with her, and then spending that time with Joel in the aftermath, is I love that. I love that kind of let's give this a let's set this up, let's tear your heart out, and then let's show you the ramifications of all of that.
yeah,
It's not just, like I said, it's not just the ramifications of the zombie apocalypse. It's not just that. It's the effect it has on people, which is much more of what the story is.
right, yeah. And I like how they showed there was several scenes, kind of quieter scenes in his apartment, I guess, that kind of gave you, I mean, one was they were all gone and then the radio came on, right?
Right,
But
right.
and then the other one was him like sleeping on the couch, and Ellie looking out the window or whatever. But it kind of gives you, without it's telling without saying, gives you that um this is his new mundanity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The new, this is, it's, he's not really doing anything. He's just living. He's just,
A- And they made a point of showing that he takes whatever job he can get to make an extra pages. Um, and he was throwing bodies into the fire and
yeah,
then digging out the ashes. And he was the one who threw the small child that was infected into
yeah,
the pile, and it just kind of showed his like complete disconnect of his world. Like
yeah, yeah.
he's just going
He's
through the motions.
singularly focused on going to find Tommy, but if he didn't have that, you kind of wonder, like, what would he be living for? He's just going
He's a
through the motions.
smuggler who is doing the mundane stuff to not call himself out. But
Yeah,
he is really a smuggler
yeah, but
trying to
like
get
in
stuff
the
in.
long run, like this is him having to take Ellie is, I feel, is ultimately going to be a much bigger um better purpose to his life than just going through the motions, trying,
Right,
getting by to get by after the world fell apart and his daughter died.
right,
Right.
right,
So,
right. And I like that they Joel in the game is as close to a human Superman as you can be. He takes a ton of damage, a ton of stuff. Now that's game dynamics. It's
right,
just game dynamics. You
right,
don't want you're the guy that you're being the main character of to be shot by one bullet.
right.
Right. You just don't,
Then your game is over
and then
and
your
you're
game is over, and then you just respawn somewhere else, whatever.
done.
You don't want that. But Joel overall is very brutal. I mean, they showed the hatchet, they showed the crowbar, they showed him killing the old lady early on with the socket wrench, with the wrench.
Yeah.
Like so, it was he is a and he and they made a point of showing the bumper sticker on his truck where he was a Desert Storm veteran,
Oh, I missed that. Yeah.
and so that was also another important thing to kind of show that he actually has a bunch of skill set,
Yep.
and so he's got all this stuff.
Yep.
Let's Yep. Okay. Let's talk about Ellie for a second. We don't get to spend a ton of time with her, but with the time we do get with her, we get her attitude, which is hugely important, which is great. She like Bella is Ellie. Like I was, I hesitated when they first announced her because she's not she's not the form in which I saw her in. If that's the best way I can, I, I, I Ellie is um, petite and blonde, like dirty blonde, much more blonde than what Bella is in the game, or in the show. But I always saw her differently
Hmm.
than Bella.
Hmm.
Bella's great. I love her. I love her attitude and Game of Thrones, and I like that she took the time to learn the American accent to work it out, especially when she's using the F word. Like that's a big deal that Ellie uses it all the time,
Hmm.
and so that was important. But we got her attitude, which is exactly what you want, and then we got her intelligence by breaking the code,
Yep.
and then we got that final scene while Joel is beating up the military guy, and we get her version of brutality. She liked that there
Yeah,
was
yeah, she
somebody.
definitely had a look on her face
Yeah,
when she was watching it.
yeah,
Yeah.
she definitely was happy that somebody was defending her for her,
Hmm.
even if it was Joel having a out of body experience or whatever, a trauma experience. But um, her understanding that there was somebody there for her, I think, is a bigger story. It is a bigger story as you go along, as their relationship gets closer and
Hmm.
closer, which we know is going to happen. I'm not giving anything away. That
But
or
yeah, and it just showed the vast difference between her and Sarah, right?
Right,
That Sarah was very, shocked and distressed by the violence that was starting to happen during the outbreak versus and upbringings, uh, where they're at, or
right,
I mean,
right.
Sarah's never had to deal with that, and Bella's probably dealt with it constantly since she was born because she was born into
Into this
this.
world, yeah.
But just yeah, it definitely put them very much on different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and we'll get a lot more Ellie coming forward, especially starting next week, and
Yeah.
as they go into Boston and they're trying to go to the Capitol, which is just going to lead to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. We know it's in the trailer. I'm not telling you anything that's sneaking anything into the trailer. A couple cool things. The the guy who mocapped Joel is in the show. We'll get him later. The girl who did Ellie, I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Marlene, who actually mocapped the character, is actually in the game. Is actually playing Marlene in the show, which I
Yep.
thought was really cool.
Yep.
There's a lot of shot for shots, like I said in the opening, when you're in the quarantine zone in Boston. There's some shot for shots for all of that. The Fireflies are trying to reestablish a central government, instead of having local federal warlords taking control,
Right.
which is kind of an underlying kind of story of what's going on.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to have that. Them putting the name of the title of the episode, when you're lost in the dark, seek the light. painted on everything, and then they made a point of showing them painting over that and
Yeah.
the Firefly symbol.
Yeah.
So I just they did enough for now. Some hardcore gamer out there is going to complain that they changed the timeline, or they didn't do it shot for shot. It was the airplane blowing up and not the gas station. Like, okay, like whatever. Like
Right.
the, the the emotional basis of the story is there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
that's good. Anything you think is going to be coming forward as we in the next weeks or so, week or so?
Well, I mean, not specifically, but I assume again, I've watched, you know, Walking Dead, so and that was basically they were on the move,
Right.
so I'm sure we're going to encounter um, what happens to humanity when all society falls apart
Breaks
and
down.
everybody's left on their to their own devices. So I'm sure it will be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to know where you're at as we go along. Um, I could tell you the whole story of but I don't want to do that. I want you to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy the show, but I want you to experience the show as I experience the game. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you every week, like, what do you think? So,
Okay.
anything else you want to talk about with this episode?
No,
I think that's
I think
about
that's
it.
good.
What we want to talk about. We want to try to keep these within 20-25 minutes, but no promises when things start happening. So let us know what you thought of this episode, our discussion about it in the comments down below. Please be nice. That is a requirement around here. I have the ban hammer. I will ban people for being douchebags. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.